Lawyers and police officers of Reddit, what is the dumbest reason you've seen someone get arrested? I know how annoying it is when people do this, but I'm not a lawyer or a police officer, but I do know the dumbest crime I've ever heard of. My dad's helmet from university. A young man, walking home from a night out, passed a bus depot, and decided to take a bus for a spin, help people get home, etc. Upon return to the bus depot, he was arrested on a few charges including drink driving, endangering the public, and a weird form of theft as he returned it without prompting. Following the charges, he was released awaiting trial, likely going to receive a nasty slap on the wrist, some fines, maybe a short prison stay, and a suspension of his driving license. Not long before the trial, he needed a good night out with friends, and he walked home past that same bus depot. It was just too tempting. He served 2 years. Work for a smaller county. Last fall we got a group of people coming me down from a nearby city to rob a hemp farm, thinking it was weed growing along the highway. Several of the crack team of bandits were arrested and lodged. The kicker is it was explained explicitly how dumb it was, that you can't even get high of the stuff. But the very next weekend they came back down and tried to pull it off again. Only this time the farmer was home and ended up holding them all at gunpoint till we arrived. We never arrested him, but I investigated a fraud where a guy called our department that issue licenses to captain oil tankers, etc. When they told him he didn't have enough evidence of previous sea experience, he literally emailed in a photograph of him sat at his computer forging a sea service testimonial for his last company and asked, "Is this okay?" I was part of our law enforcement unit, and we agreed we needed to ask Parliament to add a new merchant shipping offense for being a total freaking idiot. Oh god, where to start? The $30 worth of knickknacks someone stole from Walmart. The guy who robbed the gas station down the road from his grandma's, where the teller recognized his voice and called him out by name. The assault with a weapon, where the weapon was a frozen poultry, my personal favorite. Or the nurse who decided to use her client's debit card as petty cash, probably the last one. Woman was 5 years from retirement and will never work as a nurse again. Had one of our state troopers bring a guy into the county jail for failure to yield at green light. It was a $20 ticket, but the guy kept telling the trooper to arrest him, so he did. Dude cried like a baby when he got booked in. Trooper called his bluff. He got out in about 6 hours. Him from a small town, and once this stupid guy decides to rob one of the small grocery stores in town. This idiot apparently didn't have a car as he decides his getaway transport would be a train as the train station is close. Keep in mind this is a small town, where a train comes by every 30 minutes, so not the best idea for a quick escapule. The grocery store calls the police who have no problem finding this guy. Why? The train station is literally on the other side of the road from the grocery store. Not a cop or a lawyer, but I knew a guy in high school who got arrested for impersonating a police officer and pulling over a real-life off-duty cop who also happened to know him from high school and found him pretty easily because of that. Someone in my town crashed into a telephone pole and took out the power. The road was closed off. While things were sorted out, one lady decided she couldn't take the long way home and crashed into the same telephone pole. She was arrested for drunk driving. Not arrested, but I gave someone an unnecessary ticket. I drove past 2 girls on a sidewalk and one was holding a beer can. I backed up and pulled up next to them, but now the beer was gone. I ask the girl where it went, and she denies having a beer. I tell her to get it and dispose of it. She tells me she's 22 anyway. I respond, great, no reason to get in trouble for alcohol. Just go get the can and properly dispose of it. She denies it again. Again I tell her to just throw it away. Her friend tells her just go get it. She still denies ever having a beer. I walk a few feet back to where I saw them and surprise, there's a beer can on the ground. She got an open container ticket at 22 and a warning for littering. The worst part is, after she got the ticket she asks what if I was holding it for my friend, because she's not 21. I tell her I wouldn't throw my friend under the bus since she was the one in possession when I saw them, so it wouldn't have mattered. She still didn't seem to grasp that nobody had to get in trouble if she just picked it up. Underage kid, he was 20, I think, who has been drinking and still has the beer on him, decides he's hungry. He goes into a mini mart and hides the beer in his pocket so that no one knows he's been drinking. Goes to buy his snacks and the clerk notices that this kid has tucked extremely noticeable beers into his pocket. Clerk calls the cops and tells them that the kid was shoplifting beer. The cops actually believed the kid's story but arrested him anyway for underage drinking. He spent the night in jail. Currently, with the stay-at-home policy in France, when you need to get out for a valid reason for groceries, doctor etc, you need to print out a form with your details, name, address, reason you're going out, etc. Some guys did rob a place and forgot their form at the place they robbed with all their details. Police found them pretty quickly. Not my arrest, but someone on my job got a call from an individual staying in one of the hotels stating he thought he saw a man with a gun on the 3rd floor. The whole squad rolls over there and clears the hotel. No gunman found. Turns out the guy who called was just high AF and was seeing shoot. So the hotel manager asks the guy to leave. He reluctantly does so. An officer and one of the SDTS are there to waiting help escort the man out of the hotel while he gathers his belongings. This man was about to leave when he lifts up the mattress and grabs his crack pipes and a couple of crack rocks. Right in front of the officer and sergeant. Promptly placed under arrest. Congratulations, you played yourself. A former co-worker got a speeding ticket, called to pay the ticket. Person on the other end, there was no record of any citation for him. After a few minutes of back and forth, the person insists he does not have a ticket. A few months later gets pulled over again. After an investigation, it turns out the person on the phone had misheard the information my co-worker had given them. He paid the ticket and they let him leave. There was a news story in Denmark recently. A guy had stolen the customer hand sanitizer from a pharmacy after he picked up his prescription drugs. Because of his prescription, they easily identified him. Police called him and asked him to return it. He refused, so they had to pay him a visit, seize the hand sanitizer, and also arrest him. Not me, but when my husband was arrested, he was out on his boat fishing and forgot his life jacket in the truck. Game warden wrote him a ticket, told him he didn't have to appear in court and to come to the courthouse on the date listed to pay the ticket. Cool. No big deal. The day came for my husband to pay the ticket. He was in the area for work, so he figured he would pop in instead of driving back out there, about 45-minute drive. He went in to pay the ticket, gave it to the girl so she could process it, and she said, "You can't pay this. There is a warrant out for your arrest." My husband was extremely confused and no one would say anything to him about what was going on. A 60-year-old sheriff came over and handcuffed him. While the sheriff was walking him across the road to the jail, he finally explained it to my husband. There was a warrant out because he failed to appear in court. Remember, the game warden said he didn't have to appear in court and even checked on the ticket that he did not have to appear. My husband told the sheriff that, and the sheriff knew. He also knew this particular game ward. According to the sheriff, this was not the first time this had happened. I ended up bailing him out, and he was on probation for a year. I work in police dispatch. You would be surprised how many people with warrants call and request officers to come to their house for unrelated things. Guess they just assume the officer won't run them. Edit. My favorite instance of someone shooting theirself in foot was just a couple weeks ago though. Someone calls up and says that another mom at the park is screaming street her kids and would like an officer to come talk to her. I smiled to myself, told the woman I would get someone headed over. Officers got on scene and sent everyone home because the park is closed due to COVID. I was a seasonal officer at a beach resort. One day I was stuck in the substation working on a bunch of reports when I hear another seasonal officer and a senior officer get dispatched to a hotel for unknown reasons. 2 hours later, and am still doing paperwork. In fairness, I took a break for lunch and both of the officers come in with arms full of large brown paper evidence bags, like the 2 feet tall ones you out groceries in. They start pulling out the most varied amount of drugs I've seen ever. Something like 2 large vacuum bags of good weed, not the dry shoot, 2 pages of LSD tabs, a gallon bag of shrooms, and a bunch more. Apparently this 19-year-old had come to the beach to deal. He had paid for a few nights at this hotel. Well, he missed his checkout time and the hotel needed the room, so the housekeeper let herself. She undid the covers and found this buffet of drugs. The kid ended up showing up while the officers were searching his hotel room, and they got him. Lawyer. Client was arrested because he got drunk one night, headed home forgetting he had just moved out of this particular house. Confused when his key didn't work, but too drunk to realize his mistake. Smashed a window to get in, ate some chips, then realized his mistake when he noticed all the furniture that wasn't his. He was charged with break and enter and larceny for eating the chips. Not me, but my grandma was a lawyer. She had to defend someone who stole from a store in a city in Hungary around midnight. The only reason they got caught was because they used some matches to light up the place, and that set the fire alarm off. As if that wasn't enough, a few weeks later in court, my grandma tells the judge to look at the kid, how young he was, and that he couldn't have been strong enough to break open the door or carry something outside and steal it. At this point the defendant stands up, points at his muscles and shouts, "Hell yeah, I could." That's basically when my grandma gave up. As far as I know, he got a few months in prison. My sister was a legal assistant for a while when she was in school. She went to a hearing with her lawyer and the judge asked the defendant, "And how much marijuana did you have on you?" To which the defendant responded, "Oh no, Your Honor, it was cocaine." Not entirely sure how that got messed up, but the judge apparently gave the look of "How freaking stupid are you?" Back in my first year of uni, a guy in halls who was the biggest druggie ever got super high and called the police because someone in his flat has lots of drugs and was selling them. What the frick? A long time back, this guy'd known for a long time and rolled with before invited us to his house to candy flip. We went and it was me, my best friends who were a couple, and then the guy's girlfriend. We were having a great time, but the guy was acting really weird, giving me a really bad feeling. He was mumbling about crazy stuff about when he was in the army and needing a man in uniform. Then his roommate got home and he just started losing it, telling us all we needed to leave. The couple just wanted to ignore it, but I got my shoes on and told them we were leaving. The roommate called us a cab and we were waiting on the porch when 2 police cars rolled up. This dude had Kalednin 1 and told them he was being held against his will in his own house. The roommate talked to the cops and just said we'd been drinking and the guy was having a meltdown. That's when our cab pulled up and the cops let us go. The walk to the cab was so long and I kept expecting the cops to stop us, but we got in and rode away. That was the most terrified I have ever been. I used to work at a juvenile detention center. We had a local police department bring in a 10-year-old boy for hitting his house with a broomstick. I would think the answer for most cops would be the innocent people who thought they were safe because they were innocent, but got assaulted, tased, profiled, illegally searched, had their homes intruded upon without a warrant, had evidence planted on them, retaliated against after filing a complaint, not being allowed to file a complaint, or got gunned down in the street, in their home, or elsewhere. They are not criminals, but they were surely stupid to think that any law enforcement officer could be trusted to protect and serve anyone.